Motoworld. Italian motocrosser Alessandro Puzzar came to the United States looking for a world championship. At Unadilla Valley Sports Center, he found it. It was round 10 of the 250cc Grand Prix Championship Series. Motoworld was there to record the action. In 9 events leading to Unadilla, Alessandro Puzzar had won 6 and accumulated a 100-point lead over his nearest competitor. It was American Jeff Stanton, though, who was favored to take the U.S. round. Time practice session bore that out when Stanton posted a time 1 second faster than anyone else. At the start of moto number 1, Suzuki's Larry Ward got the jump on Stanton, but it was only a matter of time. Stanton aboard the red Honda took the lead and hid from the field. As the Team Honda rider pulled away, the eyes of the crowd shifted to the battle for the world crown. The only rider with a mathematical chance of beating Puzzar was John Vandenberg from the Netherlands. Vandenberg, number 3, was in third, but feeling the pressure from American Mike LaRocco. Vandenberg, a former 125 and 250 world champ, needed to beat Puzzar in moto number 1, then record a series of moto wins while Puzzar turned in DNFs. Puzzar, meanwhile, number 71, was doing everything he could to work his way to the front. To say the least, it was a pressure-filled situation. In the latter stages of the moto, Mike LaRocco was the fastest rider, but the Suzuki ace had to settle for second. Stanton took the win. Third place went to early leader Larry Ward. Vandenberg held off Puzzar's claim to the title with a 4th place finish, while Puzzar was 10th. Heading into the second World Championship moto, John Vandenberg's title hopes were still alive, but just barely. All Puzzar needed to secure the number 1 plate was 3 points. The Americans, well, they were looking for a sweep. Did they get it? Let's go back to Unadilla and see. Stanton did his part by grabbing the lead out of the gate and holding it to the checkered flag. Behind him, though, came a whole host of Europeans led by Puzzar, number 71, and Vandenberg, number 3. Throughout the moto, those positions changed hands on a regular basis. Mike LaRocco, who again suffered less than a sanitary start, worked his way through the pack into second and was making a run on Stanton. His run ended at the bottom of the track with a rare mechanical failure. It was thought by some that a sudden shower might cause Stanton a problem. When asked after the moto about the rain, Stanton replied, "What rain?" On this day, Stanton was picture perfect. When moto number 2 was over, the riders that finished first, second, and third were the same riders that graced the overall winner's rostrum. Pekka Vähkönen on the left from Finland finished third, and on the right, Rob Herring from Great Britain. He was second. In the middle, Jeff Stanton. He not only notched his first ever Grand Prix win, but as evidenced by my shirt, he also won the champagne fight that ensued. For the day, Alessandro Puzzar finished 6th overall, but wrapped up the World Championship. In addition, the Italian proved he has what it takes when it comes to champagne dumping. I thought Stanton was good, but Puzzar is in a class of his own when it comes to bubbly spraying. Coming up on this edition of Motoworld, more motocross action from Unadilla. Motoworld visits with U.S. Grand Prix winner Jeff Stanton at home in Michigan. And coming up next, 24 hours on the pavement. Weir's 24 hours of Nelson Ledges. Motoworld continues right after this. Well, as we showed you earlier at the Unadilla Grand Prix, Italian Alessandro Puzzar was crowned world champ of the 250 class. Now, last year's champ was also there, but not in defense of his crown. Let's go back to Unadilla, and I'll explain. In 1989, the 250cc World Championship was won by Jean-Michel Bayle from France. Instead of defending the crown, Bayle elected to move to the United States for the 1990 race season. So far this year, the French world champ has finished second in the U.S. Supercross Series and is currently leading the 125 National Championship Series. It's no wonder at Unadilla, the Team Honda rider was the betting favorite of the field. It was Guy Cooper, rider number 4, though, that stole the show. The Team Suzuki rider from Stillwater, Oklahoma, has an aggressive style of riding that leaves most audiences gasping for more. In moto number 1, Bayle and Cooper exchanged the lead 4 separate times. Throughout most of the moto, the 2 riders were separated by only a few feet and sometimes inches. Toward the end of the moto, Cooper pulled the lead and Bayle let him go. Cooper took the checkers, followed by Bayle, with Rodney Smith a distant third. The second moto, more of the same. Bayle and Cooper out front and pulling away. Then out of camera range, Cooper went down. It was an easy spill. Cooper was quickly up. Bayle had opened a huge gap.
Cooper was not about to give up. The Suzuki rider charged as hard as he could, and perhaps too hard. Same spot, Cooper went down again. He would have no trouble holding second, but the win was out of the question. Bale took the checkered flag and overall honors for the day. Winner's circle and a continuation of the Champagne Wars. This time, I got in my licks, but I still came out on the losing end.
Now, to answer your questions, yes, it was sticky. Yes, it burns when it gets in your eyes. And yes, I have every intention of getting even. Now it's time for our regular Motoworld feature, the Suzuki Trail Tip. Here's two-time National Enduro champ Randy Hawkins.
While on a trail ride, remember to always look ahead, because you never know what you may encounter on the trail. As I approach a water crossing, I look ahead to pick the best line possible, because the wrong line can get you stuck. When approaching a difficult obstacle, keep your mind on that obstacle. Don't look too far ahead, because you can get in trouble. As you can see, while I'm in this corner, I'm looking ahead to see what obstacle I may encounter in the trail. And again, remember, always look ahead while you're on a trail ride. For Team Suzuki, I'm Randy Hawkins. See you next week on Motoworld.
Well, coming up, Motoworld takes a close-up look at the state of dirt tracking here in the U.S. We discuss the issue with officials, riders, and other industry giants. Stay tuned to ESPN. We'll be right back. And participants would agree that dirt track racing has not enjoyed the growth and prosperity currently seen in the motocross and road racing arenas. Many have offered their opinion as to why that is and what we need to do to correct the situation. Others seem resigned to the fact that dirt track racing is destined to become an extinct species, and there's nothing to stem the inevitable. In part one of our special report on the current state of dirt track racing, we'll take a brief look back at the sport in recent years, then listen to some people directly involved in the sport. Perhaps by listening to the voices of those concerned, we can better understand how to preserve and strengthen this form of motorcycle racing. Here's Chris Larson.
Dirt tracking is one of the oldest forms of two-wheel racing in this country. It is generally acknowledged as an American-born phenomenon. For the most part, this American-born sport has been dominated by one manufacturer, Harley-Davidson. There was a brief challenge to the Harley dominance by Kenny Roberts and Yamaha in the early 70s. In the 80s, Honda entered the dirt track wars with a very high-profile team. Their riders, Ricky Graham and Bubba Schobert, winning 4 titles, Honda winning 3 manufacturer titles. It was this new injection of Japanese machinery that had veteran observers touting a new resurgence in the sport. The mighty mainstays, Harley-Davidson, now had Honda to use as a foil. In addition, other manufacturers started to look at dirt tracking as a viable arena. Unfortunately, nothing materialized. Although Honda did win a lot, most fans remained loyal to the homemade brand. Honda withdrew their factory effort in 1987, but still maintains a presence with independent or privateer campaigners. The official reason for Honda's withdrawal was budget cuts. Deep down inside, I have to think the undying Harley fanaticism and the sport's failure to attract a third major factory's participation were factors. The withdrawal of the Honda factory effort signaled the beginning of what we have now, and that is 2 Harley factory riders winning, with die-hard privateers rarely winning. Harley fans are happy. Unfortunately, a vital entertainment aspect is missing, and that vital aspect is brand rivalry.
Well, there is no question that Harley-Davidson and dirt track have become synonymous. Now, why is that so? Is it good or bad for the sport? What's in it for the Milwaukee motorcycles? Here again is Chris Larson.
Since 1946, 29 Harley-Davidson riders have captured the national dirt track crown. That far exceeds any brand ever to compete on the Camel Pro dirt track circuit. That's pretty amazing, especially when you consider the basic Harley V-twin power plant has remained intact throughout the years, albeit with significant innovative updates.
Twin-cylinder motors. There's just not a lot of twin-cylinder motors out there that can be developed into the same level that the Harley-Davidson is at this point. I think it's going to take some research, somebody spending some money. There is provisions for other engines to become involved, but having a lot of Harley-Davidsons out here and a few Hondas isn't necessarily all bad.
There would be a lot of people who would disagree with that assessment. Short-term dominance is one thing. Long-term dominance equates predictability, and good entertainment is rarely predictable. In 1972, a Camel Pro manufacturer title was created, and Harley-Davidson leads there as well with 10 national manufacturer crowns. And there seems to be no reason to assume there is a foreseeable end to their winning ways, especially since they field the only full factory team. Next week, we'll examine the ideology behind Harley-Davidson's racing endeavors and explore some possible ways to inject new interest in the sport. Reporting from Motoworld, this is Chris Larson.
Pro motocrosser Jeff Stanton has accomplished more than most pro racers accomplish in a lifetime. To learn his secret, we visited his home in Sherwood, Michigan. Now, it's a far cry from the stereotype factory stars dwelling that you've seen in past issues of Motoworld, but Jeff wouldn't have it any other way.
I don't have too many people to bug yet. Relaxing, quiet, listen to the birds chirp and the deer walk through the backyard and picking the grass. So I wouldn't change this lifestyle for anything. I wouldn't live in the city to save my butt.
Jeff's home is built on the edge of the farm that has been in the family over 100 years. According to Jeff, 100 years from now, it will still bear the Stanton family name. That's one of Jeff's goals, and when Jeff sets a goal, it usually gets done.
I still write my goals down on paper and put them where I can see them every day. And it's important because you have those goals and you need to know what those goals are. And you see that piece of paper laying in front of you, and you put them above your bed and you see them there every time you wake up in the morning, or you put them over the stove while you're sitting there fixing your lunch and you see them. And it's important. You see that and you go, that's right, I gotta work hard for that. You gotta go out and achieve that goal.
Number one on Jeff's list of goals is becoming the winningest rider in the history of the sport and eclipsing all of Bob Hanna's records, including 3 Supercross titles in a row.
Well, I'm getting there. I haven't won as many races as he has or as many championships, but I'm well on my way. I feel confident that I can put myself up there in his position. I just turned 22, just getting ready and getting into my prime, so I feel like I can do it.
There's an old song that says, how you gonna keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? Well, Jeff Stanton has seen Paris. He has no intention of leaving the farm. On the Stanton homestead, they build character and champions. Besides, there's a lot more to do on the farm than in Paris.
You know, I do a majority of things. I like to play basketball with all my friends and go out and go hunting, you know, do a little bit of fishing, water skiing, jet skiing, shooting little trout. You know, just a majority of things. I like to go out and, you know, do some training, you know, so that's fun for me. Go out and go rollerblading or running or bicycling. Spend time with my family is probably the biggest thing that's the most relaxing for me and it's enjoyable.
Before we close out this edition of Motoworld, let's take a look at a couple of Moto News items that I think will be of interest to you. Meeting Jeff Ward and attending a Supercross were the dreams of New York teenager Pat Leese. The Make-A-Wish Foundation, an organization that fulfills the dreams of terminally ill youngsters, made it possible for Pat's dream to come true. At the LA Coliseum, Pat not only met Jeff Ward, but was the recipient of a big bag of personal racing goodies from Jeff. A Motoworld tip of the hat to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Ready to speculate on this year's Motocross Donations team? Well, how about Damon Bradshaw on a 125, Jeff Stanton on a 250, and Jeff Ward on a 500? The official announcement has not yet been made, but most motocross experts agree those 3 riders will go after America's 10th win in a row at Västerås, Sweden on September 18th. And with those news items, we're out of time. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Motoworld, and you'll be with us next week for more motorcycle action. Until then, on behalf of the entire Motoworld staff, I'm Larry Myers, advising you to keep your wheels on the ground and your feet on the pegs. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN.
Motoworld has been brought to you by Suzuki, who invites you to visit your local dealer and check out the great lineup of 1990 motorcycles, including the new VX 800, DR, and dual sports models.